Welcome to Journey Home to Self. This is a place for us to explore the milestones, the roadblocks, the pit stops, and the breathtaking sights on the most important journey of our lives. The journey of coming back home to you. My hope is that through the stories, insights, knowledge, and wisdom we share here, you get inspired and activated to widely fall in love with choosing yourself every single moment. I'm your host, Deepshikha Sairam, and I am truly so excited and honored that you are here. Let's dive in and journey home to self together. What's up, my beautiful Journey Home to Self family? Welcome to another exciting episode. I have a beautiful guest and a beautiful podcast episode for you where we are going to talk about breathwork and how it can help you journey home to self and release fear and tap into your intuition. But before I introduce you to our gorgeous guest for today, I wanted to read some of the podcast reviews that we've been getting on Apple Podcasts. I absolutely love seeing them. It is such a jolt of bliss and joy whenever I see a review pop up. And here's one from Marty2F. And she says, it's a wonderful show. This podcast is the balm to the stresses and pressures we face as women. Wonderful guests. I absolutely agree. My guests are absolutely amazing. I love them. And here's one that I wanted to read from Bren's Social. She says, as a high achieving woman, it's so easy to get wrapped up in the success, the busyness, the people pleasing, taking care of your family, and then realize you're lost in the shuffle of it all. This podcast is all about returning to your true self, and there's no better mentor or guide than Deepshikha. Thank you so much to everyone and anyone who's left a review for us. Leaving review means that our podcast is shown to more women, more people just like you. And that is truly our heart's desire here at Journey Home to Self, that more and more women can listen to the podcast, listen to the guests' stories and their wisdoms and the things that they are now experts at, and learn how to journey home to their authentic, their deep purpose and their soul. I also wanted to tell you that we have an email address that is associated specifically with the podcast. And if you have any questions, or if you want to suggest a topic that you would like to hear, or honestly, if you want to pitch yourself or you want to hear a guest on the show, then we would love to hear from you. The email address is hello@journeyhometoself.com. It's hello@journeyhometoself.com. So take out your cell phones or your laptops, computers, whatever, and write to us at hello@journeyhometoself.com. We would love to hear from you. Do you have a question that we can answer on how you can return home to yourself? Would you like to see a guest or a specific topic to be featured? We would absolutely be thrilled. All right. Let's talk about what we're going to hear in today's podcast. Today, we have Dominiece Clifton with us, and she is on a mission to guide others to rewrite their stories by releasing and reconnecting to remember their most authentic self. She is a registered yoga instructor and certified trauma-informed breathwork and meditation facilitator. Her spiritual transformation began after struggling for many years and finally releasing her own trauma, which originated in her childhood. And we'll hear Dominiece talk about it and how she has used her own experience. And then she entered the wellness industry with the desire to guide others to heal stored stress and trauma, which manifested physically in their bodies. Dominiece is the founder of Move and Still, Nourish Wellness Collective, and the host of the School of Healing podcast. She promotes well-being for the mind, body, and soul, and uses body-centered approaches to healing, including yoga, meditation, and breathwork. I will tell you that breathwork has been such a transformative experience for me every time I've done it. I'll be honest, I don't do it as often I should. Meditation is my go-to. Meditation and journaling and writing are my go-to practices for releasing trauma, getting in touch with my higher self, and just going within. But I have done breath work maybe at least twice or thrice a year. In fact, I did it a few weeks ago, and every time I've done it, I've had such amazing out of body experiences. I've had moments of total clarity of what we're supposed to do on this earth. So I am such a big fan of breathwork, and I'm such a big fan of using breathwork to manage stress and using body-centered approach that revolved around well-being, not just for your body, but for your mind and soul as well. So let's welcome Dominiece Clifton. Dominiece, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you today.
Oh, thank you for having me today. I'm really thrilled to be here and to be able to have this conversation with you. I shared before we hit record that I love the work that you're doing and just how you're guiding people. So I'm thrilled to be here today.
Thank you so much. Dominiece, before we go into our juicy topic for today and the listeners get to learn from all your wisdom and your experience, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you based? And how did you get into this work?
Sure. So I'm Dominiece Clifton for everyone that's listening. Actually, let me back up and say thank you to everyone that's listening. I'm a podcast person or a podcast host myself. And so I always just appreciate the audience for giving their time. So I'm based in Baltimore, Maryland. I've been here for a while now. This is not like I was born in Florida, but this is home to me. I am the founder of Move and Still and the Nourish Wellness Collective, which is a new baby that I'm undertaking. But Nourish Wellness Collective is going to be a hybrid online and in-person community for women. And Move and Still has really been my focus for some time now. The organization is focused on stress management, trauma recovery, and really helping people to achieve emotional well-being, to release, to stop, get rid of burnout, because we all live in a constant state of burnout, and just to feel good. And so I work with organizations, companies, corporations, businesses offering group wellness programs, and then also offer community wellness programs to schools and nonprofits. So I dabble in a little bit of both of those worlds. And you asked me how I got started in this work. I always tell people that I never saw myself in the wellness space. This was not the path that I, had in mind for myself. I know sometimes people can have their lives mapped out and know exactly what they're going to do. And this was not the case for me. My background is in fundraising and grant writing, and that's where my world was before coming into this work. But I'm in the wellness space today because of my own healing journey and just really allowing myself to be guided. For a long time, I had a lot of unaddressed stress and trauma that I was holding in my body, physically, mentally, emotionally. And the process of healing myself and really allowing myself to release a lot of what I was holding on to has really guided me to this place where I feel so passionate about the work that I'm doing that I wanted to educate other people on what it looks like to heal and to release the things that they're holding also. So that's how I got here. And I really do love the work that I'm doing today.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that, Dominiece. And if I had to pull out a red thread among all the guests, and including me as the host of this podcast, is that the work that we're doing today or we're being called to do is not something that we would have chosen years ago, or is something that we decided that we had to do. It's almost like the work chose us, and it seems like it's been your journey. I would love for you to elaborate a little bit on your spiritual journey. That's something that we talk about a lot so that people can see their journey in our journeys and they know that it's safe to undertake that journey. Can you tell us a little bit more about what you were doing? I know that you were into grant writing and nonprofit. How did you come to a head point where you said, okay, I recognize now there is trauma, or did you always know that, but there were underlying maybe, these little, I would say, check engine lights, how like when something is wrong with a car, there is usually a check engine light, and sometimes it goes away and sometimes it's come back. So was it like that? Tell us a little bit about that, please.
Yeah, I love this question. I always knew that there was work that needed to be done. I wasn't always sure of what it meant to heal, but for most of my life, I had essentially been wearing a mask where I presented myself one way to the world. So I was a very strong, put together version of myself. Everyone, and they still do, like they thought very highly of me. I was always independent. I was always the overachiever, the person to accomplish all the things. And so I presented myself that way. And then when the curtain closed, when when the show was over and the curtain closed, I felt a completely different way. So internally, I was always struggling with feeling, I don't know, like imposter syndrome, like feeling like I wasn't who I presented myself to the world to be, feeling like a fraud because I had so much just self-doubt, and I didn't feel good about myself inside. And so I would always receive compliments from people, and people would tell me how well I'm doing and how much they admire me and all of these things. But I just didn't feel like that was true for me. Like I didn't feel good about myself. And I would say that that was true for most of my life, where it was like I felt literally like I was wearing a mask, and I would just take off the mask at the end of the day and then have all this self-doubt in my head. So I feel like that was maybe the check engine light or the indicator for me that something was always off. I just didn't know what to really do with it. My journey started in 2016, when I was pregnant with my first daughter. So I'm a mama of two girls. They're 6 and 3. And when I was pregnant with my first daughter, I just started having this urge to sit and be with myself. So I started meditating, and it wasn't every day, it wasn't consistent, but there was something that was calling me back. And I honored that, and I started meditating, and that was in 2016. And then in 2017, I started making changes. Like that was the start of a morning routine, and that really changed my life. And it was like very slowly building by adding things into my day. So the morning routine was beautiful because, as a new mom, it gave me time to myself in the morning, as opposed to just jumping out of bed and starting my day. And it was like special time for me to really pour into and nourish myself. And one thing led to another. And then between 2016 and 2020, I was on and off, very inconsistent with my practices. So I would do things, for a while, and then I would fall off. But after having my second daughter at the end of 2019, I was at the time thinking that I was going to take a longer maternity leave, and then I would go back to a new job because I resigned from my job. COVID happened that March. And so things, didn't really pan out the way that I thought they were going to be, in the midst of all like late unemployment and layoffs and all these things. I was like, this is not an ideal time to be like trying to find a new job. So I just decided with my husband that I was going to be home for a bit with the children, as the world was like figuring out what we were doing. And in that time, that's when I really went deep in my healing journey. I was meditating because I was at such a low point in my life where like all of this transition was happening. So I had, two little ones. I had a newborn. I had just walked away from my job. I had started a business with a friend, and immediately like that wasn't a good idea. And so 6 months into that, after having taken on most of the financial investment, I walked away from that. So I was at a really low point of like, I have no idea what I'm doing with my life. Financially, things are a mess. Like God, I need help, right? Like source, I need you to guide me. And so I felt called to journey within. I felt called to meditate. I felt called to be still and try to find the answers for what I was seeking, because I had no idea what I was doing with my life at that point. And that low moment was so beautiful for me because I started meditating. And when I was meditating, I got a message to do this 90-day challenge where I focused on my mind, my body, and my spirit every day for 90 days. And I remember like hearing that voice so clearly guide me to do that. And I remember coming out of that meditation excited, but also thinking, oh, this is going to be challenging because I've never been consistent with anything. But I was willing to try it. Like I had nothing to lose. I had time. We were all in the midst of a pandemic and quarantine. So I didn't have excuses for why I couldn't do it. So I did it. That 90 days literally changed my life. That's why we're having this conversation right now, because everything changed. And what I did every day was I focused on nurturing myself. I focused on my mind, my body, and my spirit every single day. And that was really me coming back home to myself. So since then, it's been 3 years now since I started that. It has been like my evolution. It started out as just one small following a nudge. You talk about like intuition, following that intuitive nudge. And that has led me to where I am now.
Yeah. Oh my God. So beautiful, Dominiece. And in just, a few sentences, you describe the entire path of journey home to self. And I wanna, take a few nuggets from this beautiful story that you've told us about your life. One of the things that really stood out to me, and a lot of people, Dominiece, they ask me that, okay, how do we start the journey home to self? We are so busy, we are moms, we are high achieving, and most of the listeners to this podcast are high achieving women who are ambitious and they want to do a lot of things in their life. And one of the things that really stood out to me, and this is what I tell people, is what you said about your morning routine.
Mm-hmm.
You said instead of just getting up and going on about my day, I took time for myself. And what you're essentially saying is that instead of just doing the things that I would do every day, AKA running by the past emotions and the habits that we've built, you were intentional. You were trying to change something. And that is it, right? When we are intentional, when we say that we're no longer going to be guided by our past emotions or our past habits, or anything that is keeping us stuck in this current situation right now. I'm going to try something new. I'm going to try something different. You become intentional about it. Then things start happening. And most of the times, things start happening for you. So, my journey has exactly been the same that, I started meditating on a whim and I wasn't very regular, and not only when, I was in like the deepest of the voids and the I call it the tomb moment where you don't know what's happening. That's when I was like, what, I'm going all in. Like there's no backing out now. I'm going all in. So beautiful. I love your story. And I know that a lot of listeners are totally resonating with it right now.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Let's talk a little bit about, the impact of stress and burnout on our health. And we had a burnout expert on the podcast a few episodes ago, and she talked a lot about the neuroscience of it. And I would also love for you to talk to us about what you've seen in your work is the impact that stress can have on our bodies, and how can it really affect us in our daily life.
Yeah. So the work that I'm doing now, again, is focused heavily on stress management and really trauma recovery, and how do we, move past being stressed and traumatized, and what does that look like? And again, this was not the path that I chose for myself. So prior to founding Move and Still, I was a nutrition and wellness coach. So I started coaching after going through my own, spiritual and physical journey right around that time at the start of COVID. And I was working with mostly moms, but women, really busy women. We were in the midst of COVID. And so people were managing children at home, trying to be teachers at home. They were wives and partners. They had businesses or careers, and they were stressed. They were exhausted. They were burned out, like myself also, like that was my life. Also, I was trying to build a business while trying to maintain and have a personal life. And not to mention like all of the stress and trauma that comes from turning on the news every day and seeing bodies piled up because of COVID. Like it was a very traumatizing time for all of us. And so clients would come to me because they wanted to lose weight, like that was their goal, or they wanted to lose the weight and then understand and learn how to live healthy and maintain a healthy lifestyle. And I was seeing this pattern over and over in my clients where they were all very stressed and burned out. And for me, it was, okay, before we figure out a nutrition plan for you, or, a workout plan, we have to address this house that's on fire right now. Like we got to figure out how to get your stress level down, because we know that stress impacts the body and the ability to lose weight. Like when your body's secreting cortisol and all of these things are happening, it's not focused on weight loss. It's focused on survival. And so I started doing research as a coach to figure out how to support my clients and how to be a better coach for them. And I realized in that work, wow, stress really impacts us in so many ways, like even from weight loss, but also just our states of mind, the way that we think, like all of these things are impacted by stress, the way that our digestive system functions. Like there's all of these things. I was realizing the physical ways that stress impacts us, but also I was connecting it to a lot of the things that we see in our societies, from crime and violence and addiction and depression, like all of these things that are very, very common and familiar to all of us. And so that was a big aha moment of at the root of everything, almost everything. Even when you look at doctor's visits, they say up to 90% of doctor's visits are stress related.
Totally.
I was realizing that there's a bigger issue here. Like as a society, as people, we don't know how to properly manage stress and what to do with our trauma and how to heal. And so I actually pivoted away from working as a coach to start Move and Still, because I wanted to educate people on how to properly release stress from the body and how to properly heal and recover from trauma. And so that's how I got to this space, because I realized with my clients, with myself, with the people around me, that people didn't know the proper ways to really take care of themselves. When I would ask clients or talk to women on social media, and I would ask them about, what do you do for self-care? They would say, oh, I go get my hair done. I go get my nails done.
Bubble
Like
bath.
I get pampered, those sorts of things. I go have drinks with my girls. And while those things are wonderful and they're great, like we look great, but then we're really stressed out under all of that. I started realizing people really don't understand what it means to properly, release stress from the body. So when it comes to stress, we are intended to stress has a cycle. That's what we don't know. It has a beginning, a middle, and an end. The challenge with stress is that we're supposed to have a stressor, something happen. We're supposed to go through the middle of that, the arousal point, if you will, and then we're supposed to go through the end, which is telling our bodies that it can restore, that it's okay, it can recover. A lot of us get stuck in the middle, where stress happens. We don't do anything to tell our bodies that we're safe. So we stay in the middle. And then stress keeps piling on and piling on and piling on. And that's how we end up in a space of burnout, because we've just gotten stuck in the middle and we've never done anything to fully complete our cycle. And so I think in understanding the way that stress works, we can all be more intentional about doing things to trigger to our bodies that we're safe, because just leaving that stressful situation is not taking care of your body. The way that we handle the stressor and the way that we handle the stress are completely different, right? Like our bodies hold the stress. The stressor is the outside external factors. You know what I mean? So it's right. The stressful job or the children and all of these things. And
or it could also be a thought of
it could be a thought. Yeah, it can be internal or external. Yes, right. Great point. But we have to realize that just because we get away from that stressful thing, that doesn't mean that we've done anything to let our bodies know that it's okay. And so that is what I think is so important for people to understand when it comes to stress, is that you have to do things for your body. And so that includes like physical movement. That's one of the most efficient ways to release stress. So moving your body, however feels good to you. There, if it's Zumba, if it's going for a walk, if it's going to the gym, if it's going for a swim, if it's going jogging, dancing, like whatever feels good physically, do that thing. It could also be breathwork, of course, is a really helpful way to release stress, really taking some deep breaths, writing, journaling, like getting it out. Like there's so many ways that we can help to release that stress from our bodies. And then once we work on ourselves, that's when we can focus on the external things. So that's when we can think about the kids that caused us to be stressed out, or the job that was really stressful, and how we're going to handle that. But one thing that's important to note is that how we handle the stress and the stressors are completely different.
Right. Excellent points there. I just want to add a couple of other things to make your point even more, elaborate, so that people can really make the connection. The one thing that, like you said, that a stress can be your job or it can be the boss, but our brains are so brilliant that we can also induce stress in our body just by thought alone, right? The thought of meeting a friend that you had a disagreement with, thought of paying your bills, the thought of the mother-in-law, the thought of that boss, or anything at all. And also want to highlight one thing here. I think it's important for us to understand that why is it not, and I really thought of that when you were talking about, women would come to you for weight loss, and then you were like, let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the house that's on fire right now. And, the way that stress works is that it induces cortisol in our body, right? It sends our body into flight or fight when there's a dangerous situation. So a deer running from a coyote, it needs to be able to run faster. So our system sends blood to our extremities, to our hands and our legs. In a short term, it's fine, because that's what's going to help you to escape the situation. But cortisol in the long run breaks down the body. It causes all the imbalance and all the disease. Now, here's an example that really helped me hone this topic, which can be a little tricky because there's neuroscience in it, there is, biology in it, there is chemistry in it. What someone explained to me as that, imagine that you are in, let's say, Texas, and there's a hurricane coming through. You're not going to think about long-term kitchen remodeling at that time, right? You're going to think about boarding up your, kitchen, or tying your deck furniture. You're going to only think about survival. You're not going to think about long-term building projects. And something like weight loss or trauma recovery or leading a life which is peaceful and joyful. These are all long-term projects, right? They cannot happen overnight. And that is why, what you were talking about, stressor and the stress and completing that cycle is so important. Dominiece, what's your favorite way to complete that stress response cycle?
I do a combination of things. I mentioned at the start of the podcast that I was doing mind, body, and spirit every single day, and I still try to stick to that today. So I do still try to move my body daily. I've been a little bit more inconsistent over this last week after returning back from vacation, but that's still my goal.
Yeah.
I also try to really feed my mind and nourish my mind. And so that looks like just listening to podcasts, listening to or watching a YouTube video, like just something motivating and inspirational for me, maybe reading. And then I also try to nourish my spirit every day with meditation, sometimes breath work, because when you breathe, that is really a way to connect with yourself, and you can have those same impacts as meditation. So though it's almost like three, focusing on those three pillars every day works for me. That's really how I release my stress. And I love that in addition to releasing stress, focusing on all three of those pillars is so important because it also helps me to continue to journey back to myself every single day and connect with myself every single day and be guided and, in touch with my intuition every single day. But I believe so strongly in us moving our bodies because it's the number one way to do it. And it's often the easiest way to feel release. Like we all know that feeling of not wanting to go to the gym and then going and feeling so amazing after because your body has produced all of those endorphins and released all of those feel good hormones.
Yes.
So for me, even if it's just getting out and going for a walk, like that, moving my body is the best way for me to release stress from my body.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And, in listening to this, I hope the listeners can even find their own clues and come up with their own ways of nourishing their mind, body, spirit, because you didn't really say take a vacation to the Bahamas every month. You didn't say, go on a hike or trek around the Himalayas or, go to the Egyptian mystery schools. These are basic, very, very basic things that we can all do. And, if I can give some examples, similarly, like you, I'd like to move my body every day. I'm a huge Peloton fan. I actually bought it during the pandemic, like million other people. And I'm someone who actually stuck to it. I love it. It's one thing that has kept me consistent on my workout. And do I work out every day? Most days I do, but there's some times when I would just go for a walk or I would just meditate. Meditation is my another one. And laughter is another thing that I absolutely love. Like I love watching stand-up comedies. My older one is so great at cracking jokes. So, he's always making us laugh. And all these things, like you said, are great, especially movement in the body, because it's been proven that our body holds the trauma. Our body keeps the score, like the book says, right? Our body holds the emotion, the body keeps the trauma. So when we move it, we are processing the trauma. All right. Let's talk about breath work, which I'm sure the listeners are so excited to talk about. I have experienced breath work before. I don't do it regularly. I know I should. Whenever I've done it, it's like, that was hard, but that was so amazing. So tell the listeners who don't know what it is, or they think that it's just breathing, what is breath work and how can it help people connect with their intuition, release trauma, release fear?
So breath work is the act of conscious breathing. The simplest way to put it is that it's controlled breathing. Right now, you and I are breathing and it's happening automatically. Our nervous systems, our bodies are so beautiful that we don't have to think about it. Our nervous system controls breathing. It controls our heart beating, our digestion. Like there's certain things that happen automatically, breathing being one of them. When we participate in breath work, we are consciously shifting the breath with a certain breathing pattern. So there's many different types of breathing patterns. You can do a slower breathing pattern that's going to be more grounding and calming for your body. And so that's helpful if you're feeling maybe anxious or like some anxiety is creeping up or someone has said something that makes you feel triggered and angry. You can breathe slower And that's going to trigger your parasympathetic nervous system, which is going to be rest and digest or rest and restore. It's going to help you to calm down. You can also do breath work that's faster pace and more activating to the body. And it's going to heat the body up and cause some heat to generate and flow throughout the body. And that sort of breath pattern or breathing pattern is helpful for if you're feeling tired or lethargic, like if you are in the middle of the day and you need that second or third cup of coffee, you can do breath work to help activate your system. And that's going to trigger your sympathetic nervous system, which is that fight or flight response that most of us live in every single day. But so breath work, it can be maneuvered to go either way. And I love it because breath work has the ability to heal us on a cellular level. When we breathe, the air travels throughout the body and it's able to get into the nooks and the crannies and to allow us to release the things that we're holding on to. So release the stress that we're holding in our neck and in our shoulders and, really just like allow the trauma that we have been holding on to come up. So some of the benefits of breath work is that, again, it's a release of stress and trauma that you've been holding for years. Breath work can help you to start letting that go. You can immediately feel less stress and less anxious or less anxiety from breathing. It also helps you to really connect with the higher power intuition. I'm going to go a little bit deeper into that. Another thing that I love about breathwork is that it provides mental energy and clarity. And so on days like today, where I'm a little foggy, breathwork can be helpful for just kind of removing some of the mental gunk that you're holding on to so that you're thinking clearer. And another benefit that I've seen in breathwork is that it has helped to deepen my connection and awareness with my own body. So when I breathe, or even when I'm not breathing, I'm more connected to my body now because of breathwork. It has built an awareness with me where I'm able to be in my body and feel in my body more. The last thing I'll say is for those that are listening that might be like me, who are typically in their heads, we're constantly thinking about the future, trying to be 10 steps ahead, or maybe we're thinking about the past and feeling guilty or feeling however we feel about the past. Breathwork is great because it helps you to move the energy from the head down into the body. And so it gets you out of your head and really gets you into your body. And then you can tune into how am I feeling? Like what's true for me in this moment? Like really just grounding you, bringing you into present moment awareness. So those are some of the benefits of breathwork. Again, one of the things that I really have appreciated about my own breathwork journey is how it has reconnected me to my intuition. So it's been that journey back to myself, and we keep bringing it back to the self. I used to have a really, really hard time with hearing from my intuition, and when I remember, like I would get ideas at the time, I wasn't sure if it was my intuition or if it was my mind. Like I just didn't have that relationship with myself because I had been disconnected from myself for so long. And breathwork has really been such a beautiful way for me to quiet the mind, because that's what it does. And it takes me straight to my heart. And when the mind is quiet, it's much easier to hear from your intuition. It's almost like, I like to give the example of if your mind is like a loud bar and there's music going and there's people talking and there's all this action happening. When you breathe, you just like clear out the bar and there's nothing left but the noise from the heart, right? From the intuitive presence within you. And then you can hear clearly. So it's really like a straight path to get to the heart, to get to those real answers that are meant for you, that blueprint from your soul. If you're seeking answers, it's a way to get to the answers. And so that is, I would say, one of the best ways for me when it comes to breath work. That is one of the, not best ways, but the most beneficial benefits of breath work. Because like I said, I lived so confused for so long about what do I want to do? And like, what is my purpose? And, what is the next best step? And like all of these things. And I, like many people that are listening might be able to relate to this. I used to seek external validation and answers. So I would ask my friends or, ask my family or look to the coach or the guru or whoever. And not that those things are not helpful, but your voice, your intuition, your body holds all the answers. Like we have everything we need within us, but we don't a lot of times know how to access that wisdom and that knowledge. And so breathwork has been really beautiful for me because especially over the last 2 years, it has allowed me to quiet all of the external noise and then really check in with myself and say, what is true for me? Like what makes the most sense for me? And then to operate from a space of clarity and feeling empowered about my decisions and not questioning myself or if I'm making the correct choice, like really feeling good and standing firmly. And yes, this is the best choice for me.
Oh, Dominiece, you're speaking my love language. I am a yes for all of that. And two things that I want to say here is that, first of all, isn't our body so beautiful? Like all the things that you said, it calms your sympathetic system, it activates your parasympathetic system. You don't need an extra shot of coffee, shot of espresso. You can breathe, and it's free.
Yeah.
Everything that we need is inside of us, and it starts with that breath. And while you were talking, Dominiece, I was like, oh my God, I completely lied on this podcast, because in my mind, whenever I've done the breath work session, it's always been that 3-part breath that we do, which is like, you breathe from your tummy, and then you breathe from your chest, and then you exhale. And the way that you explained it, you're like, even like a deep breathing or a slow breathing is breath work. And I'm like, holy shit, I do that every day. Yeah. So actually, I do breath work every day. And there's, I love Dr. Joe Dispenza and his work. And, I do his meditations. And there's a specific breath that he teaches where he guides you into pulling the energy from your lower chakras to your pineal gland. And that is just an extraordinary, breath in order to, raise a kundalini or getting that intuitive message and even releasing trauma. So I absolutely love everything you said, and, signing up for breath work again and again and again. It's and I totally agree. Whenever I have had breath work, it's those moments where, I've had like out of body mystical experiences, and my intuition speaking so loud. And even if it did not make sense at that time, 6 months later, and sometimes even years later, it has totally made sense. And, it's almost like, wow, I wish I would have followed my intuition back then. It spoke to me back then, but I didn't trust it then. Can you just give us an example for those of you people who are listening and are new to breath work? One example of a breath, and we don't have to really go into it, of course, but an example of what that would look like if someone wanted to get started at home.
Yes. So the first breath that I would always tell people to start with is just a grounding breath. It's called the halo active breath. And it's a big breath in through the nose, and then it's exhaling from the mouth. When you pull in and exhale, you want to really pull from the belly. And so imagine that your belly is expanding like a balloon. The problem with us, is that because we are constantly living in a state of stress, we're not breathing fully. So we're only breathing from our chest.
Yeah,
right?
We don't even breathe from our tummy. We breathe from our chest, and most of our trauma is in our lower chakras.
Yeah, we're taking very shallow breaths, like you said. Yeah, we're holding that trauma. We're not really allowing ourselves to access those lower parts of the body. So the most important thing is not necessarily which breathing pattern. It's like, let's just breathe deeply. Like, let's just breathe fully. So when you inhale, feel the belly expand like a balloon, and then you're going to pull the breath all the way up to the chest and then exhale from the mouth. And so I'll just demonstrate that twice so people can kind of hear how it sounds. And again, this is a very grounding breath. You can do this for a minute. You can do 10 breaths. Like, there's no right or wrong, but we always have access to the breath, like you said. So it's in through the nose and then release. In through the nose and then release. And of course, you can always play with the pace of the breath. So maybe that was too slow and you want to go a little bit faster. Right. That's okay. Or maybe you want to go a little bit slower and make it really, really deep. But it's the most important thing about breath work is to really let your body guide you and to honor what feels good to your body. And so if you're breathing, you're like, yeah, I want to do this a little bit faster, then go a little bit faster. That's the simplest breath pattern. Like just a deep breath, because a lot of us don't take deep breaths it's so transformative. I was actually on a call, a quick Zoom call the other day with a old college friend, and we've been connected on social media, but we hadn't, talked in a long time face to face. And so we had a Zoom call, and I started the call with asking her, just checking in and checking on her heart and asking her how she was feeling. And she was saying that she was feeling very stressed. And I was like, would you be okay if we did a few breaths together? So we did, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 breaths together. And on that last breath, she went, oh my God, that felt so good. Like that
Yeah.
just moved something in me. So she was
Right.
holding all of this stress in her chest,
Mm.
and 3 or 4 breaths in, her body was able to release it. And so it doesn't always take a lot. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's not like you have to do this for 30 minutes for it to be effective. You can do intentional deep breathing for 2 minutes and it still have profound benefits on your body and your emotional health and all of those things. And so
Yeah.
that was an amazing moment for me because I went, wow, that was like 4 breaths. And she feels so much better now, like so much relief.
Yeah. Even with the 2 breaths you did, I instantly felt better.
Mm-hmm,
Instantly I was like, wow, this feels good. And I also want to point out that because you can't see us on camera, of course, Dominique had a
mm-hmm.
hand on her heart. And I'm assuming that you also had your hand on your
On my
belly.
belly. Yeah.
Right. And that also, I do that too, because it helps me track the breath. It helps me know that, okay, yes, I am actually breathing from my chest, because most of us, like you said, we don't know how to
Mhm.
breathe
Yeah.
properly. We don't know how to take deep breaths. Wow, this was so good, Dominique. And I encourage everybody to follow Dominique and learn from her and, try it for yourself. Try this breath work. Like she said, it doesn't take that long.
Mhm.
Breath is free. It's yours
Mhm.
to do. And you can do it anytime. You can do it in the pickup line. You can do it while you're waiting in the doctor's office. You can even do it in the shower. You can even do it while you're having sex. So simple.
You can do it while you're loading the dishwasher. You can do it while you're at the red light. I don't encourage people to breathe while they're driving, but if you're stopped at a light and maybe you're feeling some stress, keep your eyes open and just take a few deep breaths. There's so many. You can do it at your desk if you're feeling stressed out and overwhelmed about your day. There's always time for us to find moments in our day to breathe a little bit deeper.
Yeah, yeah, awesome. Love that. Thank you so much for being on the show, Dominique. One last question I would love to ask you. I always believe that our journey home to self is continuous, right? It's always ever evolving. If you would like to share with us, what journey are you on right now, and what is some gift or challenge that you're seeing in it?
Mm, this is a beautiful question. I am on a journey to remember. And remembering means remembering the most authentic version of myself because of my own trauma, I had forgotten that version of myself. And I talked at the start of the podcast about just living as the version of myself that I thought the world wanted to see. And so the last few years has been taking off, right? The mask. It has been setting down all the things that are no longer serving me. And it has been an ongoing journey of remembering who is Dom, right? Outside of all the ideas and thoughts in my head of who I thought I needed to be. And so this version of myself is okay with things not being perfect and like being okay with the imperfection in the process,
Yeah,
the messy middle, the liminal space. And it's an ongoing journey because it really is like going back to who I was as a child and allowing myself to remember my gifts, my strengths, the things that bring me joy, the things that I love, the things that make me feel good, and making more time for those things. And a lot of those things I've forgotten over the years, you know what I mean? And so it's a process of like rediscovering what feels good to me now as a woman in the world who has for so long existed one way. And so yeah, it feels magical to be on a journey of remembering because remembering also gives me permission to let myself be seen and heard again.
yeah.
Because for so long I was so afraid to do that because of my own
Mhm.
trauma and the stories and ideas and the thoughts that I was telling myself. And I have gone through releasing, a lot of my journey has been releasing. And then in the middle, I've been reconnecting. And so reconnecting with my intuition. And now I'm in the space of remembering. And
Love
yeah,
that.
I love it here.
Beautiful. Love it. Good luck on this journey of remembering. I know that there's so much goodness that is available to you on this side of remembering. Dominique, where can the listeners find you?
So I am most active on Instagram and LinkedIn at Dominiece R. Clifton. And I hope that you link it because my name is
We
hard.
will. Yes, we will link it up. No worries.
I don't have an
You don't have
easy
to spell
name,
it.
so I always have to tell people like, just look in the show.
That's what happens to me when I'm on podcasts. I'm like, there's no way I'm spelling it out for you guys.
Mhm.
So just link it.
And I'll send you the link for this as well. For anyone who wants to try breathwork, I offer a free 10-minute guided breathwork session. So I'm guiding the session, and it's perfect for what we were talking about today. The breathwork session is all about connecting with the intuition. And so it's a 10-minute, again, free download, free audio that you have access to. You can get that at tinyurl.com/breathe with Dom. And again, I'll send you that for you to include that in the show notes as well.
For sure. I'm sure the listeners would love it. Absolutely would love it. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us. Thank you so much for being here on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's been a beautiful conversation.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you liked this one or any other episode, there are 3 ways you can support us. Number 1, come home. Start your journey. That's literally the whole point of this podcast. To inspire you, to empower you, and to give you the knowledge and tools so you remember who you really are. Number 2, I'd be so grateful if you could leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. That helps us get in front of more people. Number 3, share it with someone, a friend, a family member, a loved one, a peer. You never know how much someone needs to hear this today. Thank you again, and until next time, remember, you're whole, you're enough, you're worthy, you're unlimited, and you are perfect just the way you are. I'll see you next time.